Morning.
Just wanted you to know you weren't on. All right, Mike Weber, if you want to let us know when we're ready to go. It being 8:30.
You're on.
I'm trying to get.
You guys are good to go.
Great, thank you.
I can't get. Hold on a second.
We're just going to wait for Karen. Good morning, Bill. Well, we can't hear you, just yet. Yeah, does everybody want to just check their audio? Oh, there's Amy. Oh no, do you have to go on your phone?
Yes.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, for right now, I'm gonna get started. So good morning. Today is Saturday, March 1st, 2025, and I'm calling to order the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. And this meeting is being held on Zoom entirely, but will be broadcast by Foxboro Cable Access, as it is right now. Just for folks watching at home, in case you weren't aware, the CIP committee consists of 5 members. It's me, the town manager. We have Dr. Amy Berdos, our school superintendent, Chris Gallagher, our DPW director, Bill Yukno, our select board member, and Mike Brown, our advisory committee member. We also have finance director Marie Almodovar serving as our ex officio member. And even though she's on maternity leave, she is with us today. So thank you, Marie, for being here. Today, the CIP committee will be discussing and voting on capital items to be voted upon at the 2025 annual town meeting, which will be held on Monday, May 12th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. So the first matter on our agenda today is to review and approve the minutes from September 24th, 2024. Does anybody have any comments, concerns, edits on those minutes?
No, I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second by Mike. Any discussion?
Not needed.
All in favor? Please
Aye.
signify by, we have to do a roll call. So I'll start in the order of on my screen. Chris?
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Bill? Bill's having some technological difficulties, I think, so we can move forward. I'll vote. Oh, there we go. Sorry, Bill. So we have, and then I vote yes, so that's unanimous, 5-0. Next on the agenda is, me. So I have submitted a $100,000 request on behalf of the Select Board, Town Manager's Office for a strategic plan. We've just been discussing this at the Select Board meetings a bit, but the purpose of us, and it really has come to light recently as we've been talking about some sidewalk issues, and folks are very in favor of supporting sidewalks, but trying to get a handle on community priorities. So the purpose of the strategic plan would be sort of a 3 to 5 lookout on what are the community priorities, and that tends to follow through what are the financial priorities. And it basically, you want to look at your vision, core values. We want extensive public participation. We want to hear from all the usual folks, but we also want to hear folks that we don't usually hear from to really get a sense of what this community wants to be as we move forward in the more near term. We do have a master plan also going on, and that's happening right now. So we think the strategic plan will dovetail nicely at the end of that. And again, try to continue this community outreach. So that's my pitch on strategic plan. If anybody has any questions or conversation.
Paige, what does it pay for?
It will hire a
Consultant
consultant.
or what are you buying?
Oh, yes. We would be hiring a consultant that specializes in strategic plans. And I did bill and follow up to our meeting, check in with a few peers of mine, because I put in an estimate of $100,000 based on feedback. Bill questioned with good reason, and I did check with a couple and confirmed that $100,000 would allow the outreach, surveys, materials for meetings, the consultant and whatnot. So the $100,000 is I was looking to see if I could whittle that down, but we feel most comfortable with that amount in order to do a solid strategic plan with very heavy outreach.
Hey, Paige, what's the process for this meeting? Are all the items going to get individually reviewed? And then how are they prioritized and voted on? What's the overall process for this?
Oh, yes, that's a great question, Marlon. My apologies. So yes, we go through them and discuss them, and then we have a ranking worksheet that the committee members will rank and discuss, so that will help inform us as we vote at the end. But any other questions? Okay. So now, well, we're a little early, but it's not a public hearing, so we could continue on.
Paige, I'm sorry, can I go back? I was thinking about that for just a strategic plan for a minute.
Of course.
So on that outreach in the end, will they end up putting the plan together, or is it just a matter of the outreach piece?
No, it's putting an entire plan. We will walk away with a strategic plan document.
Okay.
But I'm highlighting the outreach only because, having been in this office now for a year and a half or so, it does feel like a lot of residents don't fully, aren't involved and know why decisions are made or where priorities are, and so I think having them feel like they have a strong voice. We're really working hard with our communication specialists and whatnot to really engage the community so they have a say and they feel they have a stake in what's going on in their town. And of course, they can do that by running for election, but the strategic plan will give them a voice, and we're really trying to capture as many voices as we can as we develop our priorities.
And do they do any analyses as part of that, or is it pretty much just looking for like trends, patterns, and what the needs are?
I'm not really sure yet. I haven't dug into sort of what, the different consultants and what they offer, but I would imagine they would do analyses on that.
Okay.
Otherwise, we could just do straight surveys and we wouldn't need a consultant, but I think it's best to have sort of their expertise.
They facilitate and kind of drive the committee, right? Lead and facilitate, drive the committee.
Correct. They will run the process. Once we get one on board, they'll be running the process and managing the committee and telling us what we need to do, process-wise as we go through it. Then they'll issue a report that then we as a town, I don't know if we'd have a strategic plan committee, implementation committee, or if the select board would act in their role, but there would be actual steps. And, as we made decisions in the future, we'd be measuring them up against that strategic plan. We'd look to see if some of the priorities and decisions we make are consistent with what we've developed during the strategic plan.
Paige, how would you differentiate for me the difference between the strategic plan and the master plan?
So the master plan is really more physical and land use, where is our community now, and sort of development related. This is a more broad overarching, where we have to look at, the most important goals, not only regarding like land use and whatnot, but more financial. So it's a little more general, but it's a little more financial than the master plan.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so now we will move on to the fire department and the joint public safety building. Chief Kelleher, are you on with us? There you are.
Good morning.
Please go ahead.
All right, pretty straightforward this year. We basically have two asks. One is the lease payment for our engine and 2 ambulances. This is the 5th of 6 payments that we have. Brandon Cabot, we're going to structure that a little bit. I think we're asking for over 100,000. Reduce that to 207,000, just based on we were approved last year to go ahead and order an engine and ambulance, which is about 4 years out now at this point. So we're not going to start paying on that until about 2027 to space out the payments a little bit. So it was just some strategy that Brandon and I kind of came up with just to kind of fit everything into our capital plan. And then the other item is just a replacement of our staff car. I believe it's a 2017 that we're looking to replace. It's up on the capital plan. So it's just a routine business as far as that goes. That's going to be funded out of the apparatus revolving. So neither one of these are free cash items.
Yes, that's an important, I just want to make that point for anybody watching at home, is not all of these items are funded out of the same place, not all out of free cash, but anything over, I believe it's $25,000 has to come to capital planning. So that's why we're seeing you, even though it's not free cash.
Yep, absolutely. So any questions? Tony's going to talk about the boiler. He's much more appropriate to talk about that than me. So I'll let Tony handle the boiler for the public safety building. But I did offer. I know Tony's home with his grandkids and stuff, but he didn't trust me. So
of course,
any questions on those two items? So one of them is just a lease payment, like I said, year 5 of 6 on the purchase of an engine and ambulance, and then just a staff car replacement. So if there's no questions, I'll hand it.
Chief, it just cut out on my end for a second there. When you and Brandon worked together, the amount came down from this 558, or this 558 is the down amount? I couldn't.
No, that's going to be reduced to 207.
207. Okay, yeah, I cut out right on top of it. Yeah, okay.
207 and change, Brandon, as the exact number.
Thank you. Yep, I just missed the number.
Okay. All right, Tony.
Tony.
Good morning, everybody. Looking for some replacement of the boiler over at the public safety building. It's a A.O. Smith old cast iron boiler that needs to be replaced with a new high efficient condensed boiler. Problem is the boiler that's there now they can't get any parts for it, anything like that. So, and it's very important that we have a backup boiler over at the public safety building. So just looking to replace it with a new high efficient boiler, because the other one, I cannot get any parts. I went through 1 year with one boiler as running the whole building and waited for the part. And finally, after 2 years, they told me they don't make it anymore. So I'm looking to replace it with a high efficient condensed boiler. And any questions or anything?
So Tony,
Yes, Bill.
as you said, that was you've already replaced one of the two.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And so this would basically bring the entire building up to new equipment, relatively
High efficient too, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Thank
I do. I did put one in there this year because I had no choice. There's no way I'm running a one boiler. And it's running beautiful. And I do have the other one as a backup, but eventually it's going to start leaking. And it's just the best thing to do is just replace them with 2 high efficient boilers. And plus, utility part of it's going to be great too. So,
Right. Is there any rebates on this?
it should be. I'll have to take a look at it. I don't see why not. I don't know if it'll be huge, but it'll be something.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it kind of internally too, so,
Yeah, but I would say Mass Save would still
Yes.
probably
yep.
offer for the equipment, if nothing else.
Okay, any other
Is,
questions?
yeah, is that entirely backup or is it operated, does it operate at a certain frequency?
Well, it's both basically two boilers. You get a lead lag. So one would run and then the other one would run. If one couldn't keep up, the other one would kick in also. That's how it's set up on these dual boilers in buildings.
And that happens?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's times when both boilers are happening, probably, tomorrow or something. But right now, it's very hard for me to run both boilers because one is a condensed boiler and the other one is not. So the flow is a little different.
Right.
But it's a huge difference. I mean, a regular boiler right there now is blowing at least 800, 900 degrees right out of the flue, temperature. And the new one's only pushing up 90 degree air. So you're saving a lot of that heat you're blowing out the chimney.
And this is consistent with what we have on all of our other buildings. The Ahern has
Absolutely,
3
yes.
boilers, the high school has 2,
Yep.
the IGO has 2, the Taylor has 2. So it's basically, as Tony said, a lead lag scenario, but by having that, you also lengthen the life of each boiler because they're not running constantly.
Correct.
Got it.
All right. Anything else?
No, anybody else have any questions?
Nope.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
let's move on to Chief Grace.
Come on, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Awesome.
Yep.
So there's 4 items I want to go through based on the agenda. The first one is the purchase of a drone. We currently already have one. This would be our replacement per se. We've had a drone program within the agency for over 3.5 years. The drone's used for all life-saving call-outs throughout the community and on the regional task team. So the flight hours and the battery retention on our current drone is becoming diminished. The manufacturer doesn't quite give us an hour time on the motors on them, but we know that we've got substantial hours on this. The buy time on some of these products, as you can imagine, with technology and needs are now not immediate. And with part of our Gillette operation in regards to critical incidents, the drones are a critical tool. So that would be a request for $20,000 within that purchase. The drone itself has all the different lenses, capabilities, infrared that we've used throughout the community to find people, missing people, and different scenarios.
What would happen with the old drone?
Oh, we're going to keep it. So
Okay.
currently we have 3 FAA certified pilots within the agency. And what we're going to be able to do is use that and have it accessible on shift in a cruiser for immediate deployment. So one of those is going to go either on the midnight day shift or a 4 to 12 vehicle. So that way, when we have an incident, it can be deployed right away. But it isn't getting the run hours that we're using on the other one, especially with our regional response teams. So that way it's accessible here in town at all times.
And if the motors were to burn out, is it something that can be rebuilt to keep it so you have 2 or no?
DGI isn't really giving us the guidance on that or the lead time for the manufacturer about sending it out and how long we would be out of service. So it's kind of just a new area. Obviously, the manufacturers love for you just to buy a new one. But the problem is if you were to send it out to a certified tech, we don't know when it would come back and we don't know when, and then we would be without. So I'm just trying to create that little gap in capacity so we don't miss it, because you don't need it till you need it.
So currently you just have one. This would be a second one.
Yes.
Okay.
If I may too, Chief Grace makes that available to us too. So last year when we had the string of brush fires, the drones were invaluable, especially having the thermal imaging capability. We could see the extent, see the area. So they're not just police, they're public safety. So they're a great tool, especially like I said, the brush fires last year, they were really helpful.
Yeah, it's calls to the state forest, anything in there, depending on the canopy, any calls for service over water, we're immediately able to deploy. So it speaks volumes for its capabilities. Anything else? Okay, I'll take that as a negative. The next one
Great.
is our police motorcycle fleet. We are beyond we are into the 5-year, or will be past the 5-year timeline on these 2 motorcycles. Historically, we like to keep the motorcycles within the warranty, and we've revamped the whole program currently. Or in the past, we had officers who were certified that used the motorcycles for a variety of different events, and we've kind of decided that that's not the best option due to the skill set and the diminishing skill set if you don't use it. So currently, the officers assigned or who are certified in the motorcycle are on our Metrolet response team, but they're also assigned to ride them on duty as well. That way, they're using them every single day, weather permitting, and that way they keep their skills up. So currently, we have 2 officers who are riding Scotty Dion. You probably see him everywhere, and Ryan McGrath. So at this point, where there is some decent trade-in value for the motorcycles, and so we'll replace them. That way, we're not fixing them. We're not getting into warranty items. We're not getting into belt maintenance, which unfortunately would have to send out all to Harley Davidson for repairs, just based on the age of the machine and the hours and the mileage. This would be funded through the police revolving account, so it will not come out of free cash. And if people at home don't understand that, that is when police vehicles are used for third-party needs. There's a fee associated with it for the maintenance of the fleet. So that's how that would be funded moving forward. And also within that price is citations of the old days of doing paper citations are no longer how we operate. Everything is moving, and we have been for several years, doing to e-sites. So the goal is, and the officers have asked, that we're going to roll in the computers and printers into the motorcycles. They make a package so the officers can do all their CJIS work on scene and produce the e-site and submit it electronically, and then hand the copy to the operator.
So,
Any
Chief,
questions?
this is for, you're going to replace both motorcycles for the 44,000?
Yes.
How much is in the police revolving fund at this point? Do we know?
As of today, I'm going to say about 230.
Okay, thank you.
So we part of the police strategic plan that occurred last year was identifying areas where the police department should be looking at capturing use and equipment, both looking at the Gillette operation and also this revolving police account. And then it was reviewed, and the takeaway was that we hadn't touched the fee associated with vehicles in over 15 years. So we moved to a FEMA standard rate of how we charge for the vehicles. And this year we were fortunate because Lynch was up on Route 1 doing the Mass Highway project, and they were requesting police cars on a regular basis, which generated some more money that we normally wouldn't have in that account. So that's been, but I will say on the expense side, the cars, the more you use them, the more you got to fix them. So it's been invaluable. That revolving account, I've already paid $35,000 out of just fleet maintenance of that, because I've already eaten up my vehicle maintenance account just based on the price of cost of materials and warranty work, that non-warranty work that have to go through the dealers. So and I'm not even halfway through the year. So if I continue that, I will hit that account for almost $70,000 this year, just to keep the fleet up and running. That wasn't built into the into the police budget and expenses.
So if the funds are available in the revolving police revolving fund, why are we discussing this? Is this just a formality?
Yes. just because of the price of the, because of the.
Not really,
of
under
those-
CIP, yeah, under CIP requirements, we have to discuss it. No matter what the funding source is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Marlo, anything that is more than 5 years expected life expectancy of use and more than $25,000 comes before this committee for discussion and recommendation for approval at town meeting. So even though the funding source is dedicated and really his police revolving account can only be used for equipment and vehicle replacement, it still comes before us for a vote to move it forward at town meeting.
Well, that helps. Well, I understand that. So but it's from a prioritization standpoint at the end. It seems like it's a no-brainer.
It helps at the end when they have a dedicated funding source and we're not going back and forth on the general fund expenses.
Thank you.
Chief, a small follow-up on Bill's question. What do you have an expectation of what you put in this fund on an annual basis? I mean, the balance is at 237, but would you be expecting 10,000, 100,000, 4 million?
I wish. No, I don't even know if we have a full year on this new rate.
Okay.
So I really can't give you a timeline. I guess I don't have the historical value. I bet you either Maria or Brandon could pull it up on Munis and find out what we've been adding. But this last year with this adjustment has really been worked well.
Thanks.
I'm gonna skip the cruiser and go to the radios. So initially, probably 5 years ago, this was due to replace all of my Motorola radios. That would have been about a $240,000 to a $260,000 request. Our current Motorola radios are about 6 years in use, 7 to 8 years old. But what we're finding is the Motorola APX 6000 is just such a good radio, and it is just holding up so well. So it's coming to an end of life in the production line, but it will be warranted and supported for the next 5 years through Motorola. So the request in front of you is to buy 20 radios. These 20 radios are all going to go to the frontline officers within the patrol division who's had their radios out there in the rain, the snow, the sleet. And then I'm going to take those 20 radios and use them as a radio cache for all of my staff that we bring from out of town to support Gillette operations who don't necessarily bring a radio. We currently have an old, they must be 15-year-old group of about 20 radios that are not supported in any shape or form of the communication plan that we have up at Gillette. It isn't trackable. It doesn't give an ID. It doesn't have noise cancellation. And as a matter of fact, if one of them decides to go on the fritz, it shuts down the system. So based on the recommendation for SEMREC, those radios have to come off and cannot be used this year moving forward. They just are not feasible. So I will take the 20 radios that I currently have in my offices. SEMREC will reprogram them all, and I'll have a cache of about 20 radios that I can use for out-of-town offices, or as we expect for FIFA, the amount of security requirements for supporting 24-hour service up there for over 40, 45 days. It'll be deployed out to those staff, and then who's ever using that radio, if they are a sheriff or an out-of-town officer, will have an ID associated with it, so we'll know directly who's assigned to it. So that is the ask there. So what I'm asking is, I've actually reduced it substantially from 260,000 to 80,000, but it's a must.
Okay.
And lastly, when I talked about end of life, right now, Motorola is taking this fantastic radio that's been in service for probably 15 years, and they're moving to what's called the APX Next. It's going to be a little more expensive, a little more electronic. It's got I wouldn't say it's been fully vetted yet. There's been some technology questions, but I want to try to avoid moving to that yet, because then I have to change out all of my support, all my batteries, all my charges. on the whole, and I just don't want to have two different radios running within the system. Up at down at the PD and the offices lockers and up at Gillette, we have one radio infrastructure, we have one radio system, we have chargers, batteries, everything's interchangeable. So for regards to workflow and supporting, we never have an issue where someone's coming up short.
Does the fees that we charge the stadium, do they cover any kind of installation, ancillary costs like this over time?
No, Bill, and it's a great question because part of the strategic plan was to look at all of these hidden costs that and find a way to capture them and, you know, off-source that expense to the vendor that's requesting it. So these become a hidden cost. Obviously, my offices need radios. So I can't say buying the radio was specifically for Gillette, but
having backups.
But having backup, I don't
Yeah.
need 20 backup radios. I can tell you
Right.
right now, I have no need for that whatsoever. I would probably take those. I could turn those in, get a little bit of money. So that becomes an extra. I have to deal with how do I make the operation function and be sustainable and work.
Yeah.
So I think that's another project in and of itself of assessing that townwide.
Okay, thank you.
And I think lastly, there's a cruiser replacement in this. I don't know if Paige or Brandon want to talk about how the cruiser replacement is in CIP today, but it's essentially just replacing one of the line cruisers, like a 3 plan this year. All obviously we know. I still don't have last year's cars, just to let you know. They still haven't been delivered. We're close. So every car is about a year out. The 3 cars that we're looking at have 92, 87, and I think 86,000 miles. And this year, as Bill, you just mentioned, is rather unique, is because I've been ramping up in preparation for FIFA. So historically, I would take this car and I would turn it in, or I would assess my detail fleet, get the worst car, where Chris and his team would say, please get rid of this thing, you're killing me. I can't this year because of what I'm going to need in order to build the security bubble or city security model for FIFA under the security requirements. So I won't be able to, and police vehicles will be part of that and how we run that operation up there. So I can't use my entire fleet every single day to run Gillette and FIFA security models. So I've expanded the detail fleet by a couple of cars short term for the next fiscal year. And this would be one of them, is I won't turn these cars. And not that they give us much money, just to let you know, they give you about $2,500. They're pretty beat. The time I turn in a police car, it's gone through a full series of shift work. And then it has survived 3 or 4 years as a detail cars. And they're done. There's nothing left of them.
So I have a couple of questions. I assume when we have details out just doing road work and the cars are just sitting there, you're using, the backup type cars. Is that
Absolutely.
correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And normally your cruisers are in your operating budget. So that's why, is this on top of what's in the operating budget?
So
No, I can speak to that. This is a shift in one of the cruisers from the operating budget to the apparatus or the police apparatus revolving fund. We've been dealing with some operating pressures where we've had to strategize and essentially shift one of those cruisers out to the available funds there.
Okay.
And in regards to the funding on this, initially we said, oh, we'll just pay it out of the revolving account. It really wouldn't. My ask today is if we could split this between the revolving account and free cash. Based on my assessment and what I'm going through right now, if I pay the cruiser, and if I have to pay for the full cruiser, I pay for the full motorcycle, and I start looking at any other. So what I do is when I'm buying a car, the cars have just gone through the roof. I used to be able to put a price in for a car, and I could include the equipment. Well, I can't do that anymore because say the budget's only say 3%. well, the vehicles have just grown astronomically in price. I would never meet my budget of 3% because the capital outlay would just eat it up. I'd be coming in at 4 or 5% because of the cost of the vehicles. As a matter of fact, I used to have 4 cars. That was the agreement. But they've gone so much, now I'm down to 3, and I'm still at the same dollar value. And all the equipment, the G-Tech, the computers, and any of the items inside the car, I'm pulling out of the police revolving account to offset those as well. So based on what I'm up against, couple of all the cars that are being replaced, they have what we call an MTD. Those are no longer serviceable through the Verizon cards as CGIS requirements. CGIS has new mandates of what computers can access their network. So I got to replace each one of those. They're about $7,000 a piece. I'm going to take that out of the police revolving account. It's not built into the price of this car. So what I do ask is not all of this come out of the police revolving account, because by about July, I'll be broke. Because I have a limit on how much I can spend each year in that as well.
That was going to be my next question. So,
Mike, you mentioned about, I know you said it's a small amount, but you're not trading in vehicles. So for the soccer, for FIFA, can you quantify that? Because again, it sounds like another hidden cost. I mean, it's not a lot, but again, it might pay for, a couple of them might pay for one of your radio outfits or what. So I'm just trying to figure out sort of what the demand and what the cost to your department is going to be on FIFA and whether we're capturing any of those reimbursements.
In regards to the police cars?
Well, that's what brought my, yes,
Yeah.
yes, because that's what we're talking about today. But it also makes me, are there any other, I just trying to figure out how much, is the town subsidizing this?
so Paige, your question really is what the increase in vehicles is, right? Because there's another cost to that, which is the insurance, if you're going to keep them on the road.
Right. True.
Correct.
True. Yeah. Like the net effect of this new policy, which is, to serve FIFA. I'm just trying to figure out sort of if we're subsidizing this operation.
So the answer is yes. As any stadium events, the town agrees to issue these licenses. Just like FIFA, we were part of that process of saying, we support this coming. So, but what did that mean? No one knew. Whereas the funding hasn't really even been determined yet. But we know that within the parameters and some of the lease agreements with FIFA, and we could spend a whole day on this, of the unknowns and knowns, but I have to look at, okay, I know what I'm going to be responsible, especially that last mile in, and what I'm going to be responsible for as soon as the football season ends and FIFA takes over control of the stadium. We're going to have to meet all of the best practices set forth by FIFA in regards to security. And that entails essentially building a city up there with a hard wall that's going to require 24-hour police security. Everything from vehicles coming in, coming out for months and months. So I have to be able to support that. So part of the planning and part of the several working groups that I'm on is designing these best practices and looking at assets and resources that at a minimum I'm going to need. What I need is, that list is even larger. There is over, I think, 400 million nationwide that's been requested through the federal government as well for security costs, roughly estimating around 66 million per site, per location for the area. So it's very large. How that connects to these police cars, I guess we can talk with our partners on that and break it down. Manpower wise, it's substantial. We're in charge of 14 different working groups that we're part of, fire department as well. And we're running 2 or 3 meetings a day and traveling. So the manpower hours removed from the department, the plan for this is also measurable in some ways. So,
but how many cruises? So what's your fleet going to go? What's your base fleet number to what it's going to end up?
So, obviously we have a transport van and we run between 4 or 5 detail cars. So we're going to be at 9 detail cars.
So you're going to keep 4 additional
for a year.
Yes, that was the question. 4 additional. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah. So we saved one from last year. That Adam, head mechanic said, this is your best bet. Keep this one. This one has the best chance of surviving. And then we'll take these three and we're gonna, we'll use them. Now, I will say, we've had a lot of construction in town and the timing it's been well. The construction projects down on 140 and Route 1 just happened to have percolated at the same time when I had these. Otherwise, I would have been killing the line division. And, that's what I don't want to do. I don't want to take our brand new cars and sit them out there and just run them and idle them. So it's between the Lynch project and we partner with the state police on that, but they become overwhelmed statewide. So that usually becomes our project, asking for 2 or 3 guys out on the state roads. So
Anybody-
I guess just to follow up on that. So how many total cruisers do you have in your fleet at this point? Do you know?
police cars, vehicles, everything? Like
Um,
ATVs, UTVs, motorcycles?
No, just cruisers.
Oh, just,
Cruisers, SUVs.
I actually have it here, just didn't add up, I knew someone. So we have 16 line cars,
16?
16 line cars.
Okay.
And that covers the 23 patrol officers, the 4 sergeants, the 3 SROs. So every car has at least 2 people in it all the time. A lot of and that's, the SROs all work off hours, so they don't come in at the same times. So they come in at 7 or 7:30 to meet the school's needs. So I can't just put them into a regular rotation. So we make it all work.
Okay. Thank you.
One more question, Chief. Just thinking about the burden of FIFA. Was there ever, and I don't know how it would work, is there any consideration ever be given to private security? I mean, it sounds like a massive burden on your staff. If it's going to be, 7 weeks or something, 7 games. It's a period of time where, are there other ways to manage this that don't tax out our community and our people?
So the private security is also built into this model, doing all of the non-law enforcement checks. So all of the staff, employees, they're also going to be part of this as well. And it's going to be substantial, especially based on the design of Patriot Place and the healthcare system, all of those. But there is going to be the law enforcement component that's absolutely going to be needed. As these are SEER events, there's going to be mandates from the federal government on the security measures that we're going to have to meet.
Okay.
And we will meet.
All right. Anything else on police? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thanks.
Moving on to information systems, we have Aaron Heyer here to talk about his requests.
Good morning.
Good morning,
So
Aaron.
this capital request is it's funds to support the maintenance of the townwide network and townwide computing infrastructure. This equipment supports really the hosting of all town and municipal applications that are used, such as like Munis, as well as storage, the telephone system, email, providing internet, building security. Systems also support building automation such as HVAC, lighting, as well as audio and video transmission. This coming year, there's a number of significant projects related to hardening our cybersecurity defenses here in the town. Cybersecurity threats have become a significant liability to all businesses, as well as municipal governments and schools. A number of projects here will be working on fortifying those defenses related to our next generation antivirus systems and early detection and response systems. These are also systems, they protect us, but these systems are also requirements of our town's cybersecurity insurance provider as well. Additional projects including increasing fiber capacity and connections between the town hall, the public safety buildings, a couple of the other town facilities as well. as well as upgrading our backup and disaster recovery strategies as well, and email archiving and some of the equipment that we use in terms of regulatory compliance for public records. Some of these systems, for example, like our email archiving systems were implemented in 2015, so they're nearing 10 years old. So we're coming end of support on a lot of this equipment. Really gotten a good value out of it. Gotten quite some time out of it. These systems are typically, organizations are probably seeing between 5 and 7 years out of those types of systems, and we've really gotten significant use out of them. So again, this request really supports the townwide network infrastructure, really all the ancillary systems that we use to, provide, security for our data and technology.
All right, any questions?
No, I just want to comment. So Aaron, you're looking for 200,000 from the general fund?
Correct.
And that's, we've kind of been pushing to that number. I know we've had to, cut that the last couple of years, but 200 seems to be the number that we're trying to be at on a annual basis, at least for now.
Yeah, we've made some changes into the system, the architecture of our system and delivery. This number seems to be a good number right now. We have a number of projects that we're hoping to complete from this past capital cycle. So this number seems to be working right now. Yeah.
Are you running into the same problems, Aaron, that everybody else is as far as timing on equipment? And, so even if you order it now, you may not see it for a period of time?
Yeah, so that's been one of the problems that we're having is, really it's kind of twofold. So one is with getting equipment and lead times on equipment. And then two is our own capacity in terms of rolling the projects out, right? Being able to plan them and get them implemented. So we're able to kind of try to time those two things to really be able to get the best value out of the money as well. Like, so for example, we're working on a project right now. We've been working on it, for a little bit over a year. It's a significant switch replacement project. In terms of the timing of this project, we went out and we got some pricing on it about 6 months ago. And after looking at the pricing, we changed strategies a little bit and we delayed the project and we're going back out. We just recently went back out to get pricing on it again. In terms of synergy, so right now, this is the time of year where schools and public libraries and other organizations that qualify for E-rate are going out to bid on switching and network equipment. So we're kind of aligning. What we did is we paused this project a little bit to align it with that time, that cycle in terms of bidding. And what we're seeing is a significant reduction in cost, right? Because we're able to pick up on the synergies of not just the equipment purchases that we're making, but that schools and in towns throughout the Northeast, right, that they're making, right? So these companies were able to get a little bit better pricing in terms of volume. So some of it is being able to source equipment and lead times with equipment and vendors. Some of it is a little bit of lead time with us in terms of our own ability to work some of these larger capital projects in. At the same time as providing day-to-day service. We typically do some of these projects on holidays. Recently did a pretty big upgrade at the Joint Public Safety Building. We did that on Veterans Day. Again, when the town definitely has events and things happening, but is mostly town business is mostly shut for the day, right? So we can't just implement these projects any time of the year.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on this? That's all you got, Aaron?
Yeah, for this. Yeah.
For this. Okay. All right. Karen Sheridan. Welcome to CIP.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everybody. We have a small PowerPoint that I was wondering if they could bring up. I think Brandon was going to bring it up.
Yep, 1 second. Should be able to share my screen.
Okay. So here we have the capital improvement plan, 5-year plan for the schools. So if you go to the next page, Brandon, we're going to start with transportation and copy machines. Okay. So for the transportation, the district operates its own bus service and replaces buses based on a 10-year, 100,000-mile rotation, whichever comes first. We currently operate 23 77 passenger buses and 6 35 passenger minibuses. This capital plan was based on a review of the fleet and conversations with Adam, who is a mechanic, with Lynn, who is a transportation manager. So for fiscal year 26, we feel like we only need the two 77 passenger buses, and we don't need the minibus in this capital plan. We do have some money remaining in the capital plan previously, so we're only going to be asking for those 277 passengers for FY26. For FY27 to FY30 for the 5-year, we'll be asking for the 2 passenger buses for the remaining of those 4 years. We added 5% cost to each year for inflation. In FY27, we're going to need another 35 passenger minibus. In FY28, we're going to need a 35 passenger minibus, but it's a wheelchair bus, so that's why that's a little bit higher. And then in 29 to 30, again, we'll need that 35 passenger minibuses for the transportation for the 5 years. And that's the plan for the transportation. If anybody has any questions, otherwise I'll move on to the copy machines. Okay. With the copy machines, so this is the school maintains copiers in all 5 buildings for use by office staff and teachers. The copiers typically last between 3 to 4 years with a copy count of 1.2 to 1.5 million copies. So we reviewed the copiers. We kept this consistent with the previous years, which is 40,000 that you've had in for copiers for each year. I would like to indicate that we are currently doing an analysis to look to see if the purchasing is still the better approach versus leasing. But either way, we still need the money for the capital. Currently, when we are meeting with the RICO rep next week, currently we have at least 3 copiers that were purchased in 2018. So we do need to replace some of them. So that's what we will need for the copy machines. The next page will move on to technology, which I believe that Aaron is going to speak to the technology needs.
Sure. Just to touch upon too, Karen was talking about the copiers. Some of these copiers, they're getting up to, over 1 million copies. Some cases, 1.5 million copies before they're being refreshed. So the equipment, again, it's serving the district quite well, and we're getting a good life cycle out of it. So the next request in terms of technology, we're currently for FY26 asking for a budget of $350,000. I will also speak to kind of some of the increases you see in FY27, FY28, and FY29 a little bit, just to preview that information with this committee here. Currently, this capital refresh program, it supports the refresh of all the capital technology across the school district. This refresh has been in place since I joined here in Foxborough in 2014. In 2014, the amount of equipment that the refresh supported was a fraction of what it supports today. So in terms of the growth, it may seem pretty significant, but but really, what we've been able to do in terms of value engineering for a number of years has really provided a good value to the town. And then there's some other outside forces in terms of, the cost of equipment, or the cost of the refresh increasing in terms of during the pandemic. The district received significant, external resources in terms of funds to provide remote learning. At that time, too, the district also implemented its one-to-one program. So a lot of that equipment is coming of age and is coming of time to be refreshed right now. So we're trying to find ways to extend that life cycle so that we can implement a more thoughtful cycle in terms of refresh, so the town's not experiencing that refresh expense all at the same time in every 5 or 6 years. So for this current year, we're looking to refresh 2 grade levels of laptops in the one-to-one program. We also have some other requests at the Ahern Middle School to refresh a digital music lab there. So we've done some work with some of the computing equipment, but that refresh is going to support some of the more specialized music equipment, MIDI keyboards and interfaces. So music equipment that interfaces with the computer lab and computer software as well. We've also started to replace interactive projectors with interactive displays. We're on about a 9 or 10 year replacement cycle with this equipment currently. We're looking to replace, we're trying to catch up because we're behind refresh on this equipment a little bit. So we're looking to replace about 40 interactive displays this year, but then once we get caught up in the refresh cycle, about 8 to 10% on an ongoing cycle to keep that equipment replaced. So in FY27, you do see an increase there. Part of that increase is that we were able to do a little bit better with our purchasing and refresh of laptops in FY25, and through that we were able to negate the need to purchase about 250 laptops for FY26. We're going to be able to use that equipment in place of that refresh, but then we'll realize that refresh in FY27. Then just looking out to FY29, again, you see a significant increase there. And again, that's because that represents a teacher laptop refresh. We were able to refresh teacher laptops over the past 2 years. So those will be coming back into the cycle in FY29, and then you'll see that there's a decrease in FY30. Just to add a little bit of information here as well. So we've really done as much as we can in terms of right-sizing our technology fleet and also minimizing the amount of equipment that needs to be refreshed. So with teachers during COVID with remote learning, they were all provided with a laptop. At that time, our instructional model in the schools, teachers had a desktop computer that was attached to their projector. It was in their classroom. It was their classroom machine. So they had a class, when they came back to in-person learning, they had their classroom computers, and then they also had their laptops. What we've done is, working with our staff here and looking at our instructional model and what meets the demands of that model best, we were able to make some adjustments. So we've eliminated classroom computers because those computers were also in the replacement cycle with laptops. Due to that, we did have to purchase a little bit better of a laptop for teachers than the ones that they were provided with during remote learning. But again, removing 500 plus computers from classroom spaces, right, and just replacing them with one laptop. So not replacing or refreshing laptops for teachers and desktops for teachers. In terms of some other changes, I know we talked about the copiers. We also eliminated a number of classroom printers. So taking those classroom printers out of the replacement cycle as well. really just trying to be thoughtful on the technology, not just adding technology for technology's sake, but looking at what we have, looking at what meets the needs of the instructional program and making sure that those are aligned.
I would add one other place where we had the reduction, Aaron, was with our K1 in our one-to-one with students.
Correct. So in the K1 area, right? So with students in place, just looking at the instructional program, what's developmentally appropriate in terms of the learning environment, not needing to be one-to-one in the K1 grades for this year. There is some conversation about about the grade 1 maybe needing a little bit more access, but reducing them to a 2-to-1 ratio so that there's 2 students for every 1 computer in those spaces there. Also some other strategic changes, right? Keeping grades 5 and 6 computers in the school building. And the middle school age students, we were seeing a little bit higher rates of damage to laptops when they were going home, grades 5 and 6. So one of the changes we had made is keeping those in the building, keeping them in charging cabinets within the classroom. They come in their first period class, they get their laptops, they have them all day, but they leave them in the building. So seeing some decreased damage, in those grade levels, also helping extend the life cycle in terms of replacement.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Are you all set to move on to other equipment?
Just one last thing I'll add, and I know that Karen, with the copiers, I think we're experiencing some conversation around this too, is just with talks of tariffs and with actual tariffs, we are seeing increased costs, realizing, so we have tried to do some, purchasing with technology and things and head that off. And also with selection, right? Looking at vendors that are manufacturing outside of China, right? That might not be as impacted by tariffs as much as other manufacturers to really try to get the best value. But just to put that out there, we are seeing increased costs in terms of, technology, whether it's specifically laptops right now is where we're seeing it most immediately.
Aaron, do you have a total value of what equipment on the school side and what the town side currently is to kind of give a relationship to what you're asking to, replenish?
Total value of the equipment? I don't, but I can give you a quick, I can get you, a projection, but I can give you a quick example. So
I think my point basically is, as you said, back in 2014, we probably had, let's say, $1 million worth of equipment, where today we have 5 million. I don't know what the real numbers are, but that's, so when you look at the replenishment, it's obviously, the question is it in line with what we're trying to cover?
So just to give you an idea, like in terms of laptops alone, right? In terms of the one-to-one program, we're probably around 1.8 to 1.9 million dollars in equipment. So that's not talking about network infrastructure or administrative machines or other classroom computers, interactive boards. We're just talking about laptops, right? In that one area. But I can get you some more information in terms of total cost of equipment, but it's significant, especially when you look at this network refresh budget projection I have for this current cycle we're in right now is $285,000 on the town side alone.
Right. So I guess I would just suggest going forward that would be a great number to have, especially where you're looking for much larger increases in future years. The 350, I understand based on what we did last year, but having a relative value to, we've got a $10 million investment, and so 600,000 on 10 million doesn't look like much compared to if we're thinking it's a $3 million investment. So
yeah, absolutely. I can put some of that information together, but again, just for example, with the student laptop, teacher laptop alone, we're upwards of like 1.8, 1.9 million in equipment there. And that doesn't include, the interactive projectors. It doesn't include really, some of the building infrastructure equipment. We have card access, security equipment, all of the equipment we have is refreshed through this program. So, but I can put some of those numbers together and share them out.
Okay, Karen, you got
Any other questions? Or so we'll move on to other equipment. So when we had our budget meetings, the principal's input was not only for the general fund expenditures and salary and payroll, but they also gave some input on some capital items that they would like. So I'm going to start with Ahern Middle School. Ahern Middle School is asking for a library refresh, some new furniture, and that we have put that in FY26 at 30,000. Just to back up a little bit, we did, with all the requests that we had, we did try to prioritize it to spread it over the 5 years, because obviously we can't get it all in 1 year. So we did a little bit of prioritizing with the principals on spreading it over the 5 years. So the middle school also is looking for a music lab refresh with musical equipment. That also is an FY26 request, and that's 22,000 estimated. The high school is looking for new classroom furniture, chairs and desks. We have pushed that. We spread it over 3 years. We put it from FY27 to FY29. So FY27, 30,000, 28, 26,000, and 29, 26,000. And the high school is also looking for a 12 to 15 passenger van. What they would like this to use for if they have some small athletic trips or some small field trips, they would like to have this van available to use rather than using the big buses and the vans that if the school vans are not available. So that's one of the questions that they have asked, and we have put that in FY27. So for the other equipment for FY26, that total is 52,000, and 27, 95,000, 28, 26,000, and 29, 26,000. If you go to the next page, we have also gotten some requests for major repairs. We do have that separate. So again, we did have to prioritize this, and also got input from the principals. And also Tony, facilities. So for FY26, Ahern Middle School is looking for carpeting, new carpeting in the library classroom, the main offices, the guidance office. Some of those in the guidance office, it's 3 offices, an open lobby area, and 2 hallways. The estimate for that in FY26 is 60,000. That is all we are requesting in FY26. The rest we have pushed out to the following 4 years. So the high school is requesting to build the locker rooms behind the weight room for football and move it out of the IGO. They also want to update the men and women's locker room. The estimate on that is substantial. It's 2.5 million, and that is pushed out to FY30. The high school is also looking for away and third section of the bleachers on the turf field. The estimate on that is 435,000. We have moved that to FY28. The high school is also looking for replacement interior doors and hardware for the boys and girls gymnasiums. The estimate on that is 28,000. We have that in FY27. And the final in this particular section is the high school needs the replacement of the turf on the field. We have that in FY27 at 900,000. And then the building renovation is the third section. So with the Taylor project, the money for the Taylor project that we're hoping to get from MSBA, we will need the money for this feasibility study if we are approved by early May of 2025. So that's why it is on this capital plan for FY26. So that is 1 million for the Taylor School renovation for the feasibility study. Tony is here if anybody has any questions with regard to the major repairs. And I'm hoping Bill Yukna can chime in on that Taylor School project, since he's done many beautiful projects in this town. So if anybody has any other questions.
So Karen, one question, you don't have the van for food service, which would be paid for out of the food service revolving fund. But because it's over 25,000, this committee would still have to approve it. So assuming that you want to go with that at some point, which I thought was the plan, you'll have to get that onto one of the town meetings coming up. You can request it.
I
for this
will
one.
work with Janice on that one.
And regarding the MSBA, the Taylor School, the $1 million, is there a chance we'd get the money back from the Burrell before that? Is this just a safety net in case we don't get some money from them, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well,
Yeah, I'm going to let Bill, because I did ask Bill that question since he was involved with that.
So if the MSBA approves the project this coming year, it wouldn't get approved until late November, early December. And then the process itself, there's a fair amount of paperwork that's done, but you have to hire your OPM at that point. So the money would probably be needed in the spring. I would say that, the money that we should be getting out of the Borough project, unfortunately, the state is really incredibly slow right now. It's taking us months to get even to the closeout on the Borough project, just by the fact that you can't get people at the MSBA to respond. So I'm not really hopeful, because they have to go through their whole audit, that we'd have anything before. I know we won't have anything before the Maytown meeting as far as any information from them. So it's likely if we would be fortunate, I would say that if we had a fall meeting, we'd be fortunate if we knew the money was available then. And which would still be fine relative to, the project. We wouldn't need it, by then. And worst case, we could extend it, to May of next year, the way the MSBA process works, but they just need to know that the town is behind the project before they'll allow you to accept.
Thank you.
So Bill, you might have answered my question, but so we submit an app, we get approved, you think maybe November or something like that. And then you're required by some time certain after that to have hired a consultant or whatever. Just walk me through the timing.
So basically what would happen is you get approved, you get brought in. You don't actually get brought into the process until February or so, at which point in time they typically have taken the group of towns that they're allowing into the process for that year and split them into 2 or 3 pockets. Obviously, if we don't have the funding available from the MSBA on the original project at that point, we could ask to be in the last pocket, which would push us closer to after town meeting, before we had to spend money, town meeting of next year. So there's ways of delaying it within their process to get this funding available. But again, the big caveat here is I just have no confidence in the MSBA as far as when this money is going to be freed up. They've been very good relative to payments as the project went on, but the project basically, they hold back 5% of their funds just for things if they find things during their audit that they shouldn't have paid for. But the reality is they're almost doing mini audits every time you put in a requisition, because they get all the detail and they ask all the questions. So you really shouldn't end up with losing anything on that 5%. And there's, I think in the end here, we should be somewhere between 750 and $1 million that they owe us at this point, depending on how they review their audit. So
I'm away from this entirely, so I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear on it. So the 750 million is, you're hoping to get money from the borough to fund this, is that right?
From the MSBA project, yeah, from the MSBA itself would fund what they've been holding back on their grant
Got it.
on the borough project. And any project that we do, the money can only, because it's bonded money,
Yeah.
the money can only go to another building project. So that's how we've always moved money from one project to the next project to the next project, similar to what we did with the borough itself.
And so is this million assuming that money? It's not
Yes.
new free cash money, it's actually that bonded money out of the borough?
Yes.
Got
That's
it.
what we're
Thank you, that's very good.
The second
one
part of
more-
that, as Karen said, for 27 is that, you have to, at town meeting, you appropriate effectively the entire project cost. The 45 million is the estimate at this point. But the MSBA, typically, we run around 50% reimbursement, but there are certain exclusions. They only allow you to do so much on landscaping and stuff like that. So you don't really get 50% of the project. But that you get as you're going along. So in the end, we really only bond about 25 million, but we have to effectively approve 45 million at town meeting. So that's why she's got it shown the way it is.
One more comment on the total you can see. So for FY25, the total capital was 772. So we purposely tried to make it pretty close to FY25 with the exception of that Taylor School. So FY26, if you take out the Taylor School renovation, it's only 774. So we pushed out the expenditures over the 5 years to try to align this year close to FY25.
Is there anything else, Karen, on your presentation?
I'm all set unless people have questions.
Okay. Any more questions for Karen Schools?
Just, I guess I'll make one comment. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to just let everybody know the carpeting over at the Ahern Middle School hasn't been done since the renovation of 2000. So it's got its 25 years worth, and just to kind of keep that in mind, and the furniture also.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So thanks, Tony.
All right, Brandon, would you mind taking that? Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going straight into DPW, who also have a PowerPoint.
I stole it. I stole the screen. I do have Bob Worley on the call with me. So as we touch base on some of the water things down the road, I'll let him touch base on those. Kevin's only 3 weeks in. I wasn't able to commandeer his Saturday this early. Wasn't able to get on a schedule ahead of time. But so we have a few items, mostly equipment, and some other projects. So first one up, we have a front end loader. This is a normal repair or normal replacement schedule item. These pieces of equipment generally will last 20, maybe 25 years. They, along with the police and fire apparatus, have a long lead item. These are 12 to 18 months from the time we order them to the time we see them. So by the time we actually get this replacement, the machine will be 22 to 23 years old. So it fits right in that schedule. This is a $350,000 request. Unfortunately, we have succumbed to the price increases that everybody else has. This same piece of equipment used to be about $200,000, and that was back in 2018, 2019, when we last ordered one. So this is a second piece of equipment. We have two of these in our fleet. They get used year round. This one actually has a grappler on the front of it for tree removal. So our tree and park uses it. Our highway department uses it. The water department will steal it sometimes if needed as well. So this is the first piece of equipment we have. Next up, we have a detention basin lawnmower. So this lawnmower that we're replacing was actually purchased when the town still had our active landfill. It currently has a solar field on it, so we no longer mow that landfill. However, we have been utilizing this lawnmower to do all of our detention basins, which is our stormwater features around town. So this piece of equipment actually, the driver's seat rotates. So they're always vertical, and the mower itself, the mower deck is what rotates to the slope. So this is really a safety piece of equipment as they're riding the banks of those detention basins, that they stay safe. The mower we have is more than 30 years old, and we can no longer find parts for it. So this is overdue, and we're looking for $37,500 for this piece of equipment. Next up is a wood chipper. So we have two wood chippers in our fleet for our tree and park division. The one we're seeking to replace is a 1997. It's actually already out of service and is overdue for replacement. This new machine would become the primary, and the unit that is now 13 years old will become our kind of backup unit. Again, we use this year-round, primarily in the winter months when we're taking trees down along the roadside. We do chip Christmas trees in Foxborough, so we drive around for 2 or 3 weeks after the new year, and we do collect Christmas trees from all the residents in town. Those Christmas trees do beat these machines up. The sap and the pine needles and the branches really, beat these machines up. So we would use the older machine for Christmas trees, so that we have the new machine as our primary. We're seeking $125,000 to replace this wood chipper. Next up, we have a asphalt hot box. So the trailer that we have is a 2006 trailer. It is utilized year round for not only pothole repair this time of year, but also trench patching. So this is something that is utilized by the highway department, but does go out. The highway department in Foxborough does a lot of the trench repair for the water department. So after they've done a hydrant replacement or have a main break, the highway crew actually goes out and does that asphalt work. They're able to put 3 to 4 tons of asphalt in this machine. It keeps it hot all day long. So without this, we could put asphalt on the back of a truck, and we'd get about an hour's worth of workability from that material before it gets too cold and you can't put it on the ground anymore. So this, I'm looking for $40,000 from the general fund and $20,000 from the enterprise, the water enterprise, to fund this piece of equipment. So we're looking for a split on this one. All right, next up, we got a 2007 John Deere skid steer we're looking to replace. Similar to the larger front end loader, we try to get 20 years out of these pieces of equipment. So this is, I'm calling it a normal schedule replacement item, looking for $72,500. A lot of the use from this is with the highway department as they're doing sidewalk work, as they're doing a lot of their roadway work, catch basin, drain manhole, structure replacements and repairs. This piece of equipment gets used for that. We also use it during the winter months for snow removal, as we have to haul snow off the common. This piece of equipment does go up there and is utilized through the winter months as well. Next up, we have a 1-ton dump truck we're looking to replace. This is one that I actually don't have a picture of because we haven't had this truck in our possession for more than a week in the last year. It's a 2006 Dodge. It was probably at the time not the right truck to buy, but that's what the equipment maintenance supervisor wanted to go with at the time, wanted to get away from Ford and try Dodge. It was definitely a learning experience because we've had a history of significant mechanical issues. It is, when it's in the fleet, a daily use vehicle, including plowing. Even though it's closing in on 10 years old, it is a normal replacement. These smaller trucks we looked for, 10 years, depending on the salt and the snow we have. They may rust out in 8 years, or we may be able to stretch them to 12. So we're looking for $140,000 for this item. We also have a work van for tree and park. So this is replacing a 2010 work van. It's on a Chevy 3500 chassis with the box on the back. It's a daily use vehicle for their tools and equipment. They're able to put everything in there, from field maintenance, irrigation, repair equipment, anything that they need for storm damage, and even when we're taking our trees down, this van goes out year round to all the different sites in town, whether they're doing turf maintenance or tree work. This is something we've been able to stretch this out. As you can see, it's 15 years old now, but it doesn't go out and plow, so it doesn't get a lot of the salt rot that the rest of our 1-ton chassis trucks get. So we're looking for 140,000 to replace this 2010 Chevy van. And I think the next two are water department. So if Bob is on, I'll let him talk.
Good morning. The first thing up is the Board of Water and Sewer Commissions are looking at a $1 million annual water main replacement, which will be paid in our rate structure. Currently, we have about 110 miles of main that is aged up to 100 years old, and you would typically expect water pipes to live 50, so we're well over that amount. We also have over 20 miles of asbestos cement pipe, which tends to become a problem if it's in a wet area. One of the most famous ones was under the railroad bridge, which has broken many, many times because the asbestos pipe is soaking in water. So this will be part of our program to continue on in the future to start attacking these projects that to be replaced.
So this will be an annual item. It has been the last couple of years. On this one, we're looking at Cocasset Street from roughly Moore Street, Cannon Forge Drive area, and trying to get all the way down to the Mansfield town line. It's an undersized 6-inch water main. We have some pressure issues down in the Windsor Drive, Abbey Lane area that we'd like to resolve by upsizing that section of pipe to a 12-inch. That'll help our hydraulic flow down to that area of town, and also resolve some of that AC water main that Bob was talking about under that railroad bridge.
What has been the history as far as, what $1 million, how many miles of the piping does that do?
Well, in the good old days pre-COVID, $1 million would get you 1 mile. Now, post-COVID, and with the increases in price in ductile iron pipe, it's less. So we'll have to see.
So in 110 years, we'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah. There's, it's like, yes, we could easily do 10 times this amount, but that would bankrupt the Water Enterprise Fund, and we just don't have the manpower to drive and engineer that many projects. So, about $1 million a year, we can tackle a good chunk and keep going.
To Bill's point, so $1 million gets you a mile. That distance, Chris, you described seems to me, I don't know what it is, but is this a fraction of that work, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, so the $1 million we have actually funded in FY25 is being combined with this $1 million for FY26 to get us that full section of pipe. So we could have gone out and we started some design to go from Cannon Forge Drive down to the intersection of East and Cocasset Street to get us just under the bridge. We felt comfortable with the $1 million to get us to that point. This second round of $1 million should get us the rest of the way to the Mansfield town line. So we'll do it as one project instead of splitting it into two.
Do we have an interconnect with Mansfield? Does this do anything for that?
It does not. I mean, we are working with them to. We do have emergency interconnects. The issue we have in Foxborough is that our pressure is greater than everybody around us. So in order for us to take water from anybody else in an emergency situation, we need a pump. So we are actually working with Mansfield and some consultants to design a portable pump that could move from Foxborough to Mansfield at a couple places on a town line, and we could actually go to Walpole or Plainville or some of the other surrounding towns if needed in an emergency situation to be able to pull water through those emergency interconnects.
I was just wondering if you have, with the difference in the undersized pipes and going to the greater volume, do you have a problem with the pressure currently with the undersized pipes? Does that end up creating issues?
It has been, particularly up in Windsor Drive, Abbey Lane. You know, should we have a high flow event closer to Cannon Forge, their pressure does drop significantly.
We've found through the hydraulic model that we have for our flushing program that there are certain locations that when we flush, we know we have issues at those higher elevations. West Street was one of them up at the town line. That was part of the project we did with the dam replacement. We put a 12-inch water main all the way up to the town line, so that, you know, helps with the pressure up there during our flushing and other high flow events that we have. Windsor Drive is one that's been on our list as well. And it's one of those things we're doing the worst things first, and then we'll keep picking at all the other smaller 6-inch lines throughout the town that we know we have issues with.
And when you replace them, you're replacing them with 12-inch? Is that what you're doing, or?
Yeah, so the standard today is anything that has a fire hydrant on it is supposed to be an 8-inch diameter water main. We have a lot of 6-inch asbestos cement in the system, so it's, you know, grandfathered in. It works, but a lot of that smaller 6-inch pipe is through subdivisions. But we know we have some of the far extents of town. Cocasset Street, East Street's one of them that it was an old 6-inch water main because that's all that was needed at the time. So we're trying to rectify that as we're moving through the system, replacing those older water mains. We look at our hydraulic model and make sure that we're putting the right size pipe in for, you know, not only today but for the future.
Dare I ask, is there an issue with the asbestos pipe for safe drinking water?
Fortunately, no. Asbestos, the biggest problem with it is if the pipe itself was dry and above ground and you could actually inhale the fibers. While it's wet, they stay intact, and through Mass DEP.
We lost you down there, Bob.
Can't hear you.
No,
Yeah,
we
he's
lost
dropping
your
Cut
audio.
out. But no, the like Bob was saying, as that pipe is wet and in the ground, there are no health concerns with it as far as moving drinking water through it.
What about if it breaks?
So that becomes a concern with really our staff as they're doing repair on those pieces of pipe. You know, they're all trained for asbestos cement pipe work. We're actually looking at putting them through a little bit more of a rigorous OSHA training course for it as well. But they're all trained. They have the right equipment. You know, when they cut it, they have to cut it with a certain saw and wear certain PPE as they're doing that. But as the pipe stays wet, and then, you know, even if it breaks, it stays wet. It's not a health concern for DEP. It's more as we remove that section of pipe out of the ground, how we wrap it, how we dispose of it, that they're concerned with.
Gotcha.
All right.
Anything else on DPW?
I think I had a couple things left. We are looking at on the, again, water department, a 2006 backhoe loader. They do use this on water main breaks, hydrant replacements. They use it on snowplow operations. Normal schedule replacement. Again, 20 years is kind of the life expectancy on these heavier pieces of equipment, especially when you're using them for salt and in snow operation. So we're looking to do a split on this, 180,000 from water and 20,000 from sewer. Kind of our standard 90-10 split on a lot of the equipment we have between water and sewer department.
Okay. What do you get on a trade when you trade? I assume you trade these in.
Yeah, we usually auction them off. We've kind of got away from, and a lot of the vendors and contractors that we buy equipment with have gotten away from doing trades. There have been some legal issues and procurement issues with how that equipment gets traded in versus auctioned off. So we've kind of stuck with an auction policy on all of our trucks and heavy equipment over here. Even lawnmowers and some of the other smaller equipment we'll auction off when we get a stockpile of half a dozen pieces of equipment. We'll bring the auction company in. They'll do all the work, take the pictures. Something like this, we may see 5,000, come back from an auction item like on something like this. All right, I think that's it for equipment. We've got, I think, two other things quick. Our street and sidewalk reconstruction. We have, requested from Chapter 90, the fair share tax and our TNC. The Chapter 90 is generally historically been about 625,000. The fair share tax, which is new in the last year or two, has been coming in around 310,000. And then the TNC is we get a portion of all shared rides, Uber and Lyft that start in Foxborough. It's a fairly small amount. It's about $10,000, if that on a good year. So this just goes through as we're accepting the funding. And then we've also added 350,000 from the general fund over the last couple of years. That kind of ties into our financial policy of spending at least $1 million a year on our roads and sidewalks. That fair share tax was a nice boost the last couple of years. And I'm hopeful that the governor's budget has an increase of 50% on the Chapter 90. So if that makes it through into the final budget, that would increase our Chapter 90 and this allotment by another 300,000 or so.
So what does the TNC acronym stand for, and what is it again?
So it's every time somebody takes an Uber or a Lyft from Foxborough, we get a percentage of that ride, or a dollar amount is associated with every ride that starts in Foxborough. The acronym itself.
Transportation network companies.
There we go. Thank you. I was getting there. So that's what that is. It's like I said, it's a small amount. If you get into the cities and towns closer to Boston that have more Lyft and Uber rides, starting in their numbers are higher, a lot higher than ours is.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I think the last thing I have is the Crack Rock Pond Dam renovations. Did make it in as a request. The Crack Rock Pond Dam is over on North Street. We have been working through our phase 1 and phase 2 studies with, as required by Office of Dam Safety. So this is a dam that's an intermediate sized dam. It's a significant hazard in poor condition. We do have a estimate from the phase 2 to remove the dam. So the first thing we look at is, can we remove the dam from jurisdiction so that in the future years we don't have to comply with any of their regulations. It just becomes a culvert and more of a stream bed than an actual dam with a large impoundment and pond upstream. So the estimate came in from the phase 2 study at 2.3 million to do the dam removal. So that's what went in as a request. I think this is something that it's important to highlight that there is work that needs to be done on these dams, and this is one of several we have in town that are going to need capital in the future. I do think that this is one I'd like to walk it through some of the environmental permitting, both state and locally, to figure out exactly what we want to do over there. We can do repair work. The repair work's closer to $1 million, but then the dam stays within the jurisdiction of Office of Dam Safety, and we have to follow their requirements for inspections and repair work and construction in the future years. So this is one that I think is probably going to come off the list by my request, to let me walk it through some of the other process and permitting first before I come back. There's also grant opportunities with the dam removals and renovations through the dam and seawall grant program. So I'd like to walk through that grant application and talk to them and see what we might be able to get for funding. There is a match requirement. So even if it's $1 million in renovations, we're still going to have to come up with 25% match for that. But I'd like to, at this time, I'm probably going to remove this request and walk it through a different process before I come back and look for money on this one.
Okay,
And I think that's all I have.
great. That's it, Chris? My goodness, that's a lot. Does anybody have any questions for Chris or Bob? I mean, we talked about it, Chris, the Crack Rock Dam, yeah, the other day. I don't know when that was, yesterday, Thursday, and we were talking about the safety issues because it's in poor condition. But you were noting that the downstream flooding, if by some chance the dam were to breach, that there's not a lot of, property owners and humans down below, downstream.
Yeah, the downstream analysis, the houses on the North Street side of that, the Neponset River are higher in elevation for the most part, and the balance is, runs through the Patriot Craft Group property until you get down to Route 1. So it's something that, with the phase 2 study has been done. We have some short-term repair work we can probably even do in-house. A lot of it's maintenance, just making sure that we're cutting trees and any vegetation on the banks so that you don't have root systems getting into it. The dam itself is North Street, so it's an earth dam. If we were to ever lose that, we're in a much different situation because it's the road than just the downstream impacts. But it's something too that that's one. Any repair work, replacement usually is done during low flow season, which is August, September, October. And it's a larger issue for Foxborough because of the location to the North Street. It's not Putnam anymore. The back entrance to the stadium, that we don't want to be doing that work in that time of year. So we really have to walk it through permitting before we finalize exactly what we want to do. There's also other concerns, from my perspective. We should look at those dams. Can we breach them? Can we get out of jurisdiction? This is one where we can, but then we end up with a bridge. So the culvert has to be large enough to handle the flow, to reduce the impoundment upstream. But now we're going to have a bridge instead of a dam. And then it's kind of a toss-up. Which one do we want? So there's more work to be done on it, but I did want to bring it forward as a highlight for something that will be coming forward, hopefully in a lower amount, because we're going to get grant money for it. That's the goal.
Chris,
Chris.
with the bridge,
Go ahead.
sorry, with the bridge, then would a bridge then eliminate or reduce the pond?
It would. So you would end up with more of a stream flowing through there, which, the Conservation Commission and property there, the Lane property, kind of highlights the fact that there is a pond there. They've got a very large deck there, and it's used for, kids do theater plays and there's sunrise yoga, and, they're kind of focused on, seeing that asset, environmental asset as a pond versus a stream. So something that, again, the town needs to be involved with. We need to figure out, I can make a recommendation that we should breach it. But if we're going to end up with a bridge and lose the pond and that habitat area, then we should have a large conversation. Conservation Commission will want to get involved with that conversation as well.
It's probably more of its natural course, I would assume. I mean, from
the goal is to get it back to what it was before humans got involved.
that's what I mean. It's like, I mean, you can't prevent the reservoir's been dammed further up, but I mean, that was probably all a river before any of this was put in place, right?
Yeah, it was. And, but you have to go back to, I think the notes are 1772 when it got dammed up. So it's been that way for quite a while. But what DEP and Office of Dam Safety and Army Corps of Engineers, they want to see that we're walking it through that process to, can we put it back to what it was? And we found that even on West Street, we weren't able to do it, and there's a 10-foot wide box culvert on West Street now, but there's still too much of an impoundment to get it out of jurisdiction. So West Street is still considered a dam, and we'll have, future capital work to do on it. Nothing major for the next 20, 25 years or so, but it'll still be in jurisdiction. And we had, some neighbors that liked the pond that was there. They bought the house next to a pond and they didn't want to see it go away. So those are things we've got to talk through as a town as we go through the permitting process.
Thanks.
Bill, did you have any question?
No, actually, he answered it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Chris on all his topics and equipment? Okay, well, let's move on then to Facilities and Human Services. We have Tony, Maselli, and Bill listed, but I know Mark's also here. So I don't know which one of you wants to speak to this, but I know that as we've continued to work through the community center project, which we had to throw together very quickly last year. I mean, without a lot of information, as everyone knows. As we've been getting quotes and doing some work, we're seeing some higher costs than were originally anticipated. So I don't know, Bill or Tony, do you want to speak to this, or do you...
Yeah, I'll start. Tony can add because he's obviously been boots on the ground with it. The one of the biggest issues that we ran into or are running into is the sewer, the current sewer estimate. Now, it's out to bid, so we don't know exactly what the number is going to be, and hopefully it will be south of this, not north of the number. But our original estimate that Chris had been able to put together based on the project that's going on Walnut was 250,000. We're now up to 450,000. So that's increased that one component by 200,000. The elevator went from 150 estimate to 250. Again, that's out to bid right now. So hopefully that comes in south, not north of the 250. But that's an extra 100,000. So that's 300,000. Two items that weren't in our initial estimates, and I think because we thought most of them would be covered by equipment that existed there, which had to do with the internal intercom system, was about 50,000. We didn't have that as an estimate number at all. And then the other thing, which I guess we should have had, but didn't really think about, we just were going to kind of key lock it, I guess, was to have fobs and camera controls and everything else, which is about another 50,000. So of this number, about $400,000+ is just in items that we underestimated or didn't include in our original cost. We're also seeing on every single item we're hitting, whether it's the electrical upgrades or, even the flooring replacements, that the numbers are higher based on material cost and going from there. Part of the reason that the water main, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the sewer main connection is higher, is that as we go by houses, even though our intent was basically to do the community center and the individual who owns the property across that paid for the engineering side of this to give that sewer, as we go by properties that don't currently have sewer, we have to put stubs for each of those houses, which obviously increases the cost pretty significantly doing that, because there's a number of houses. The sewer main currently ends right at the dentist office, right behind the Getty station or whatever it is now. So that line goes by a number of multifamily, residential units. It's obviously a huge boon to them, but because the water and sewer refuses to have an upgrade or a betterment charge, the town will have to incur any cost in doing that. They would only incur the cost of connecting and paying for flow. And to me, one of the biggest issues with that is the fact that we're going by the Forge property, which once we do that, that's just a huge development opportunity for whoever owns that property. So we're going to enhance all the property on the street between us and the community center. For residents, I think that's a great thing. For these development things, I think that shouldn't be on the town side. But again, I wasn't too successful with Mike on having him even consider a betterment charge. So those are kind of the increases. We'll have a better feel before town meeting if this number needs to be this high based on the elevator and the water and sewer. Our current concept to get the building open will be to spend up to $10,000 of the money we already have to get the current septic system running and allow us to at least operate for a while. But it is not the long-term solution that we sold the town on or that we would like to have for our town buildings. If the project, obviously, if the sewer cost goes way up from where we are right now, then I think we'll have to live under the sewer septic system for a period of, a longer period of time until sometime in the future when we can afford to do it. That being said, if we don't do the sewer, we won't need a majority of this money. So we have to get it on the CIP now to be able to move forward, but we'll know more information based on those two big bids that are out right now. And also by then, I would assume our other big cost factor is a brand new electrical service to the building. We'll have a better idea from National Grid and our electricians as to the final numbers on that component to it too. So those three big items can go up or down between now and town meeting. And obviously, if they decrease, we would decrease it on town meeting floor. And if the sewer becomes a major issue, the majority of this number goes away for now.
When are the bids due?
I think Brandon said that they're out like 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, so I can answer. If everything goes well, the sewer bid will be due on March 6th, and then the elevator bid would be due on the 13th. But that's assuming no delays with questions or anything like that.
And the septic even medium term couldn't be made viable because
No, the septic can be an interim, fix, if you will. It's just we don't consider it based on the amount of use this building will be, getting over life to be the optimal solution. And at this point, we've been able to get, with the Borough project, we got that on sewer. The Taylor project, Chris is working with what's happening on Walnut Street to get us a connection to that building. We're really going to be down to just the joint public safety building that we haven't been able to get on town sewer, which I think for the town is the absolute, best solution we can have anywhere. So again, I think, if it does fail because the cost is just way too high, then at that point, water and sewer may want to make a conscious decision to talk to landowners on Main Street to see, because if any one of those big multi-unit things, septic system fails, good luck to them on being able to put in a new system without major cost.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mike? I see you pondering over there, Mike.
No, I'm good. Yeah, I'm thinking, but okay.
Got it.
I think
All
as
right.
much as I hate this, because we haven't had to do this on any of our building projects in the last 20 some odd years, where we've been under like this in our initial estimates. This is still, remember, a $2.7 million purchase, a $3.2 million, no, a $2.5 million purchase, right?
Mhm.
And a $3.2 million ask of town meeting. So even with this, we're under $4 million for a 17,000 square foot building on 4.5 acres of land. It is still, to me, the buy of the century. The town will never have one of these come across it again like this. I just don't like the fact that it's, we're going to have to go back to the town, but it is what it is. So.
Right. All right. Thank you. Moving on. Now we're on to Tony again and Libby O'Neill from the library to discuss the elevator. Good morning,
All right.
Libby.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. When we put in this request for the elevator, it was breaking down about every week. So we thought it was necessary to replace the elevator. However, in talking to Tony, and I'm sure he can pipe in with more details, replacing the elevator is not advisable, but we would like to address the issues, update all of the controls. An engineer would be needed for this project, so it would probably be in the range of $100,000. Like I said, it was breaking down every week, almost every week. This is a very busy library, as all of you know, and the elevator is probably one of the most used elevators in town. We have been lucky that the elevator has not broken down in a while, so we are lucky on that front. But when it was breaking down, patrons were denied access to the library. We had disabled people that could not access the first floor or the children's room. We had a family in a child was in a wheelchair. They could not go to the children's room because they could not access the different levels. And then God forbid if the elevator broke while someone handicapped was actually upstairs, they would then be stuck in the library because they would not be able to get down via the elevator. So we are just trying to prevent any bigger issues from happening. We're trying to get ahead of this. Our intention is to address this issue in FY26 so that it doesn't become a bigger issue down the road.
Thank you. Tony,
So-
how do you feel about that? Because I know we talked about the elevator back when it was breaking down all the time. And I was
Right.
thinking, and you said it doesn't need to be replaced, but how do you feel about the controls? Is that something Libby's been working with you on?
Well, the thing is, if we upgrade to the controls, there's gonna be more sensors added, and a lot of the issues over at the library with the new elevator is these new elevators all run on microprocessors. And a lot of times, if you have a surge coming in, it just doesn't take much for the thing just to kind of, and sometimes just a matter of just going in there and resetting the switch. But what makes that elevator more to break down is because there's 5 floors and they're half floors. So the sensors all over that shaft. And if that elevator just misses it by a half inch, it causes this to be a reset. But I think they've been working, United's been trying their hardest to, and it's been good for a while, knock on wood. I think we replaced some of the sensors probably about 3 months ago, and we were having problems up to that point. And as of now, things are going good, but I just want to kind of put a warning out there. If we go in with new controls, I believe we're still gonna, probably run into more issues and stuff. But I'm just, saying is like right now things are running good, and I cross my fingers, but you never know.
Me too.
Every day it breaks down, but
Yes.
but like I said, I've been working with United pretty tight on that, and I think we've pretty much solved the problem on that. But like I said, it's all computerized microprocessors, and sometimes it's just a little jolt from power coming in from grid or something is enough to get the thing to go. And it is, like you said, it is the most used elevator. And because the children's is at this all the way up, it's always used with carriages, and it's very, very, and but unfortunately that's just how it is with elevators. I mean, they just as they get newer, they get more sensors, the codes change, so it makes a little more.
So here's my 2 cents. I mean, this is one of the newest elevators we have in town. Compared to elevator life, which typically is 50 years, this is not even a quarter of that. And, the reality, first of all, I think 100,000 is a lot when you look at buying a brand new elevator at about $150,000, because the shaft is already there. Mm-hmm. So while I would support, obviously, some very detailed review, like it sounds like what Tony's been doing with United, I don't think the $100,000 is the number that's needed to support that kind of work. And as Tony said, you go into doing new controls, you are going to have a much more sensitive elevator, and potentially with its use have even more problems. And additional, you're going to always have to do these alignment issues. We're very fortunate Town Hall is 2 floors. It's, doesn't have much sensors relative to that. Joint Public Safety, 2 floors. Not a lot of, needs in that sense. The high school, 2 floors. Everything where it's a single floor to a floor, your sensor counts and everything else are much reduced. This one, again, just based on the needs of the building and having the parking underneath created the number of floors the way it sets up. But I think I fully support getting this under control and putting money to do that. But I really don't think the $100,000 is the number, but that's just my opinion.
So what do you think makes sense?
I think you could easily spend a quarter of that and have, all the sensors replaced, not upgrade the controls. Again, you upgrade the controls, you're upgrading everything. and it's not old enough for an upgrade on controls unless there's unless United come back and says there's a defect, which I'd be hard pressed to believe on such a new unit, that they would come back with that, but they might. But that's, you go along that lines again. And the unfortunate thing is, again, these chambers are all made for specific elevators. So one of the reasons the elevator that we're out looking at on 76 Main Street, we're not even designing the chamber yet because we need to know what the elevator is, and they will tell us what the chamber that it goes up and down is. So it's not like you have a lot of choices. You go into trying to modify or change this, it's that unit basically that's going back in that unit. Or whoever quotes something would have to custom make one to fit in that chamber. So I think at this point, if you wanted to be overly cautious, $50,000 to do the work. But I quite honestly, I think Tony's got the right handle on where he's going with this, and that is just keep pushing the elevator company to find where the issues are and remove them and replace them.
Yeah. And we definitely appreciate that, what Tony's been doing, because it has been working for, a little while now. So knock on wood again.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Last but not least is Matt Brennan and the Health Department. Hi, Matt.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
So yeah, the health department is asking for some funds to replace our older Ford Explorer. So we have a 2010-ish Ford Explorer, relatively low miles, but it's beat up. It's faded. You can't see the town seals anymore. There's some damage to the interior, the exterior. I think actually Mark said it best when he called it a hunk of junk. So, we're hopefully asking for it to be replaced. And we would prefer another SUV type vehicle. Basically, we like to do clinics and set up tents and have different things. So, the added space of a Ford Explorer or an SUV fits our department a little better than a car. So we asked for kind of a replacement of that Ford Explorer type vehicle. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Anybody?
So it's 15 years old already.
Yeah.
What's the amount that's being asked for?
47,000. And I don't know if, the vehicle may be worth something. So when it's disposed of, I don't know if that comes back or no, but might be a little.
You might get $500 on the auction for that thing. But no,
And it's going to go
I
back
think
to the
you
general
guys-
fund. So.
Yeah, you're probably looking at like a Chevy Traverse, something that size, to be similar in size. We've gone away from the Fords with the exception of the police cruisers. The Ford Explorers have water pump issues, so we're trying to stick with Chevy. That stuff the maintenance department, equipment maintenance department can deal with down here for all those needs. So, I mean, that 47, 48's probably a little bit more than you need, but better safe with the price increases. You're probably closer to 35, probably maybe 40,000 at most, but
I think we priced it on the Chevy Equinox, I believe.
okay.
So I think it was, maybe one model up from that,
Yep.
just because of the added size. But yeah, we were looking at the Chevys.
That was going to be my question. You based this on you looked up the list price for this type of vehicle that you're seeking?
Yeah, Brandon gave me the list from one of our vendors, and we used that list in order to create the price.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Matt? All right. Have we forgotten anybody? I don't think so. All right, so we're the next on the agenda is break and ranking of proposals, but I think we might need some instruction. I know Marie was sending out something, and Brandon, I don't know if you folks want to give us some marching orders on what's next and the ranking and how it best works.
So I could
Welcome
jump in.
back,
Can you all
Marie.
hear me? You can hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
My first question is regarding the elevator for the library. Should we reduce that down, and if so, what amount?
Bill, you said what, 50,000 to be conservative, or?
Yeah, Tony, what do you think based on what you've done?
I mean, I think we're gonna be good, but I mean, I could say that now, but who knows what's, 3 or 4 months going, but I'd say 50 to be safe, and we'll see. I mean, I
If you
hate to
don't
get
spend
it.
it just goes back.
Right. That's what I mean. I don't want to but I also don't want to say no, and then all of a sudden we're looking for it, but
Okay.
Okay. So the only other adjustment was the removal of the dam for the 2.3 million. So with the removal of that, we actually now have enough funds and free cash for essentially all of the projects. Now, obviously, that you as a committee, it's up to you to rank the projects. We do have a ranking sheet where we will ask of you to rank. So it's essentially one would be you approve the project and approve the funding for fiscal year 26. Two would be you approve it, but the funding is deferred to the fall. And then 3 is the project entirely just gets deferred to another fiscal year. But I did want to note, we did start with, let me look back here. So we started off the fiscal year with 8.3 million in free cash. We've used a little under $1 million already back at the special town meeting for some capital needs, transfers to actually a little more transfers to the fire stabilization fund. And then with the planned articles that we have for the May town meeting, including what we're using towards the operating budget, we have for free cash available for the capital, that dollar amount is, let me just look here. So it's $3,397,836 is what's available for the capital. And with everything that's been requested, we will need, let me see here. 3. So 3,279,379.
And does that include the split on the cruiser that the chief asked for?
Yes, 1 second. Yeah, that was the other piece too. We're able to split the cruiser. So with that adjustment, we only need so 3,315,865 of free cash. And we have this will essentially leave us with, if you were to fund all of the projects, not making that decision for you as the committee, but if you were to fund all of the projects, removing the dam obviously, and then funding half of the cruiser with free cash, you're still left with about $31,000 in free cash.
And Marie, that leaves 3.1 million. Is that what you're saying?
It leaves the 2 million. So our financial policy.
2 million, which is that under our goals for free cash?
No, it leaves the 2 million. That is our goal, is to leave 2 million for the yearly recharge.
I thought the goal was percentage terms, like 3 to 5.
Well, the overall, you target a free cash balance of 3 to 5% of your operating budget each year. But at the end of the fiscal year, the other goal is to leave 2 million unspent. So you start off the next free cash certification with a positive 2 million.
And you're assuming that operations are going to leave you with enough to get to 3%?
Yes. That's where on the revenue side, we're always very conservative with our local receipt estimates.
No, I'm just trying
help
to
with that.
understand the thinking. Thank you.
Yeah. because we do rely on free cash for our capital, so we do have to be very conservative in that area.
How much did we spend on, out of free cash last year on capital?
Last year, let me see. So we spent 3.8 million free cash on capital.
And what would this year be?
3.1.
3.1.
3.1 or 3.3?
3.1.
Oh,
And that includes the 650 for the community center and what was appropriated back at the special town meeting. And if you were to fund all of these projects.
gotcha.
And my assumption would be, you tell me if I'm wrong, that if the citizen petitions went through, that we would just allocate, I don't want to just say just, but we would have to take some of the Chris's 350 grand or whatever he has in the sidewalk repair and do that project specifically versus whatever he may want to do. Well, I mean, you don't plan for a citizen petition, but say he sells it and it goes through. What happens then?
I mean, right now all you have is the $31,000. So if you either take that or take away one of Chris's or one or several of Chris's projects and make the
Just so trying to walk through the whole process. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we wouldn't be in line. We would be essentially violating our financial policy.
So I think that
I remember that you're still waiting for, you had some estimates or assumptions on revenue from the state, that you're still waiting for the final numbers or estimates. Is there anything new in terms of, what we're likely to get from the state? It's going to be higher or lower than whatever your assumption was?
Are you talking about the roads or just in general, just state aid?
In general. And especially as it would apply to,
Well,
free
Chris
cash
was-
or this.
Right. I think Chris had mentioned he thought there might be slight increase, but it's all dependent on the governor's budget, and we don't know where that will stay, where that will land finally.
Yeah, and on the operating side, state aid goes towards the operating budget. We don't use that for any capital.
But it would end
Chapter
up
90.
contributing potentially to free cash at the end of the year.
Potentially, yeah, but we won't know what the final budget is usually until the summertime after the town meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So, you still want us to rank?
That's my question to you all as a
I was
committee.
gonna say, yeah, the question is, do we need to rank?
We need to
Or
rank, right.
are there any items on this list that any of us just feel shouldn't be funded this year?
It's a
If
better
the answer by
question.
all of us is no, then we don't have to rank. And if the
Think
answer is
that-
yes, then we should do the ranking.
I think the only one that might need to be deferred to the fall is the Taylor, the feasibility study, because we technically don't have that money available or we won't have that money available for appropriation at the Springtown meeting. So if we
Okay.
do a special in the fall, which traditionally we do, we should probably shift that one.
I
to the
think I
fall.
would leave it and see what happens with the state. Like I said, I'm 99.9% sure that we won't have it, but at least we could just cancel it at town meeting. But if it was available, obviously we'd want to do it. I do believe we could move it to the fall period though, because you're right. We won't even have an answer before that. So I would agree with you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what do you accomplish, Bill, by running it out in May versus just waiting?
Nah, actually, we don't
Yeah.
accomplish anything. You're 100% right.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I would still like to see the ranking take place. I also have a question on what is the benefit of moving something to the fall?
I think it's a false, quite honestly, I think it's a false security other than the fact that it leaves money available just in case something happens and you don't do it at all. You're saying you'll move it to the fall, but if you can't, if something else comes that has to happen.
I think waiting to the fall on anything any of the extra like concerts or other things that have been added that weren't previously anticipated, as we certify, and Marie, tell me if I'm speaking out of turn, but as we certify free cash going into August or September, any of that extra revenue that we weren't anticipating, gets added into the availability that we could then allocate in the fall, which I think is what we've done the last once or twice in the last year or two.
But
Yeah,
you're
that-
just stealing for the
that's correct,
future
yeah.
year.
Yeah,
So-
our free cash, you're essentially, what you're doing is you're waiting until your free cash gets certified again, on July 1st. So right now, we've done it. We actually did it with the trackless trailer for DPW recently, where we didn't have the 235 at the CIP meeting last year, so we deferred the funding to the fall, and at the special town meeting, we were able to pay for that using the newly certified free cash. So you're just deferring the funding for it, but it's not a guarantee that the funding will be available. But traditionally, it has been, because we do have that, like as Chris mentioned, when your free cash gets certified, we're able to capture some of those additional revenues from the concerts that aren't included in our projections for the operating budget.
But again, then you're using next year's free
Yes.
cash effectively instead of this year's free cash.
Yes.
So
So just a point of a clarification, if we defer say $1 million, would that though still be taken off the bottom line? So thinking of the citizen petition, would it look like we had an extra $1 million sitting out there, or would it actually be allocated and like?
no,
Right.
it's available. It's not allocated until town meeting allocates it.
But the 1 million would come from borrowed funds. Unless we don't have the money, then it would have to be free cash.
No, she was saying if you took another $1 million, let's say we didn't spend $1 million of what's
Oh, I see.
allocated to free cash,
Yeah.
you'd leave $1 million in free cash, and the citizens petition then would be able to take it, and you wouldn't have it available. Well, technically, you wouldn't have that $1 million available in the fall. You'd have to hope for additional funding, in the free cash recertification.
Marie, how does the state view holding extra free cash?
I actually encourage you to do so, because what they don't want to see is that you end up with a negative free cash situation, or no free cash. And here in Foxborough, we don't rely on the tax levy, or we can't rely on the tax levy to fund our capital. We don't go out to borrow unless it's a major, building project or a major renovation, things like that. So we rely heavily on that free cash generation from the additional revenues that we collect. And it's not just the concerts, it's, investment income that comes in well above our projections, one-time building permanent revenues. And obviously, with us leaving the 2 million at the end of the fiscal year, that protects us in the future, because as I've mentioned in previous presentations, you're never going to collect 100% of your tax levy. State aid is never going to be received at 100%. Just last fiscal year, we had a shortfall of about $750,000, and we were able to use our local receipt surplus to make that up. But that 750, if we had collected 100% of those revenues, that would have been 750 more available in free cash. So you don't want to spend free cash down to zero, just in case something happens. We could have another pandemic, and then we'll be screwed. But the state, like I said, with our financial policies, they want you to target a specific percentage, but they also don't want you to spend it down to zero.
Which we're holding 2 million as our carryover.
Yes.
And then just
And
spending the balance.
That protects you as well. Say if department heads, or say if we spent 100% of our operating budget, and our revenues, came in exactly at whatever the budget dollar amount was, and that 2 million is all we would have. So it's an added security layer there.
I do want to reiterate that I think doing this prioritization is important, largely because, often, and this is, perception as well, people expect that departments are going to come up with their list of requests, and they have some high priority things they're certainly going to put in there, but may also add some nice to haves or less important. And even if you end up voting to fund everything because we have enough to fund everything, it's important for the citizens or the town meeting for folks to be aware and see that, well, there was a conscious effort to focus on make sure the high priority items were done, and potentially as well as the lower list.
I think the majority, if not all of these, are needs. When we put out the budget guidance memos in the fall each year, we ask departments to prioritize their needs first. So unless I'm wrong here, I would say that all of these projects are needs rather than wants.
And the way
This is my first time attending this meeting, but I'm just interested historically, has prioritization occurred? And and if so, why and when was not done?
Yeah, and we also asked departments to project out for the 5 years, so they spread out their needs over those 5 years. I don't know if
your prioritization process, as described, a little less of a prioritization than it is a when, because you were asking full this year, part this year, and part next, part deferred. I think that's what I heard. 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not necessarily this is the top need and this is the second, third, fourth, fifth, like that. It's just, do we want to fund everything this year or not?
That's what I was going to say, Marlo. The prioritization is probably the wrong, or the ranking is probably the wrong terminology, because it's actually not a ranking or prioritization. It is only, like Mike said, in the timing is like, are we going to do it this year now in the spring? We're going to do it in the fall, or we're going to do it next year. It's not like a 1, 2, 3 where you end up with your top priority projects and you end up like with a bottom project. It's more just now, later.
Yeah, some of the immediate examples that come to my mind, I think about in the conversations and prioritization is like with DPW, and really looking at how long those pieces of equipment have been around, and really listening to Chris as far as we can defer that a year. It's going to be tough with the maintenance piece, but we're able to defer it. And so I think that's one of the things, people being really transparent as far as what is the real need right now, or what could potentially be deferred to the fall or a year later based on what we have as a town.
The other thing I would say is that typically what we used to do on the CIP was they were ranked based 1 highest priority, 2, down to 4. And then based on the funding, so Marie telling you what you have for funding, how far could you get through the ranking? It was only in the last year or two that we've gone to this, what we're talking about. And I think, to Marlo's point of the question really is, if we rank these 1, 2, 3, 4 as to whether or not we consider them a priority, and the 4th being the lowest priority, but you still have the funding to do it, you still end up in that same position. If you didn't have enough, then we would say, okay, all the 4s are going to have to be, do we agree that they're going to be deferred, or we're just not going to do them? At what point does it go to something we would recommend being deferred to the fall for funding? So I think it's a little different when you have enough money to do it, unless you don't feel that something is a priority. To Amy's point, I haven't heard anything in this grouping that people have presented that, again, somebody's not asking for a replacement on a 2020 vehicle type of thing, just for it's nice to have type of thing. Everything has basically been documented as, either age or serviceability. The whole police department and fire department are, if you look at them, obviously fire is not being funded by free cash, so that doesn't really matter. But the few items coming out of police for free cash are all items that are quite, necessary for what we're going to do with FIFA, which is going to be a revenue generator to the town. So, we need to be prepared for that. So it really would come down to just potentially a few items. I think we've, said the strategic plan is an important thing for the town, but, if you decided you want to defer it, then you'd be deferring the strategic plan. That's what that would come down to. So I'd have no problem ranking. I think I would rank 1, 2, 3, 4 relative to, do you highest priority to 4th? But again, even in doing that, if you're willing to spend the $3.1 million, we know we're going to all 1 through 4, we'll get it.
And also there's the risk, I mean, as Amy and Bill said, we're not, all of these are needs, not just wants. And we're hearing from Chris, you know, if we don't get our order in sooner, then we're waiting just that much longer. And we're seeing the prices, you know, exponentially increase. So if it's an actual need, it seems prudent to not delay it because we just have so much uncertainty moving forward. So I guess that's a big question is, you know, do we all believe that all of these are needs? You know, is there anything we want to defer and or not fund? And, you know, is there a benefit to not funding things and holding more in free cash? I mean, that's probably what Marlo and the people would want to know is, well, why are we spending? You know, it's a tough time. Shouldn't we just be banking this money and not spending it? But, you know, again, these are needs that have been identified. We have long equipment. They are part of efficiency. They're part of operations, and they get more and more expensive to replace, repair, or be offline. And now, as with the longer we wait, the more expensive they get to, and the longer they seem to take to get in-house.
But in years past, when there wasn't enough money to fund everything, wasn't what was on the list proposed all viewed as needs? Or
No.
in fact, would you say some of them were, nice to haves or not definitely needed?
I don't think we said they were nice to have. I think what we did was said, were they high enough in, you know, by doing a priority listing was, you know, maybe 80% of these we would consider ones. And maybe, you know, the next percent would be twos, threes, and fours. So that even though we thought a 4 was something that, you know, should be done or could be done, there was just not going to be enough funding. And that's why it fell off the list versus something that was a high funding, you know, need.
And having been an outsider to this process previously, what I observed is this team, you know, like Chris and Bill and those running these operations, there was great teamwork. And, you know, Chris would say, hey, I really need it now, but I will wait. Or Bill would say, you know what, we can wait on one school bus. You know, I think there was a very good effort to work together as a team to help support one another and push things forward as needed. But a lot of people would take the hit, even though they needed it. There was that teamwork to kind of say, let's be fair about who takes the hit.
Yeah, totally agree.
And I think, you know, part of that conversation has, you know, IT has taken hits over the years when, you know, we didn't have enough to fund everything. It was, well, instead of $200,000, let's do 100, and cut that down, you know, and Aaron, you know, part of the conversation could get by. You know, the school buses is always a big thing. You know, we should be, you know, we've got 30 school buses, you know, we have plans in place to replace equipment over a certain time frame. And I think that's what you're seeing here. You know, the school buses, we've got 30 of them, you know, they've got a 10-year life expectancy. We should be spending, you know, replacing 3 a year. You know, police cruisers, part of my thought is, you know, do we need to do a market adjustment on his operating budget where those have historically been part of his capital outlay because it's less than 5 years of life expectancy. You know, now he's, because of his the operating expense and the cost of those vehicles, you know, now he's coming to capital CIP to get one of the 3.
I understand, and I guess I'm hearing that this ranking these, you know, 1 through 4 isn't part of this process. I think it should be, and I think that if this committee end up saying 80% of them are 1s and the others are 2s, there aren't any 3s or 4s. Therefore, because they're all 1s or 2s, we want to fund the whole thing. That's more important input to the citizens in the town to see that that's your view. There aren't any 3s or 4s, and this makes sense as opposed to this is a long list. We funded everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have no problem with the 1 through 4. What's being proposed, the 1 through 3, basically is saying that you're going to approve everything or just move something. Unless somebody says they're going to hold something, but I'm not a fan of deferring it because again, I think you're then, you know, leaving the door open for money to be spent on something that we're not projecting here, that hasn't been discussed here. And also that you're, you know, tying into next year's funds on what you're going to use. I think we should be approving what this year's needs are this year, and trying to fund them if we can. And if we can't, then they shouldn't be on the list.
I guess
Okay, I don't have anything further.
we don't have a ranking system set up like Marlo was contemplating, but I guess we could just ask openly here. I was just looking through the list myself. Is there anybody here who feels like anything requested today would fall in the 3 to 4 category? Personally, I don't feel that way based on the, what's been described and sort of the deferment and whatnot. But if anybody has a concern or has a volunteer that they think is something that doesn't need to be funded this year, speak now. But does anybody else look at something and question it?
So, my opinion would be in just being, I wouldn't rank everything as a 1, but I I would have ranked the Ahern carpet, furniture and music probably as 2s and 3s, in the priority need, but I wouldn't have been below that. So, as far as the public works, all of that, I see what Chris has, I see what he does. And I look at the age of the equipment, and you're just not going to get, productivity if the machines and the equipment's in the shop being fixed. I'm hopeful that the community center, by the time we get to town meeting, is a lower number than the 650, but I still think it's a number 1 because we need to get that done, up and running and completed. And everything else I would consider 1s. So, again, the strategic plan, I think is it going to stop the town if we don't have it? No. But, is it something that we should be doing and having a plan for the, future, 3 to 5 years? Absolutely. So maybe I would rank that as a 2 if I was concerned about funding at this point. And if we only had enough for 1s, then it would fall off. But that's my opinion. So I'm only one of the group. So.
Well, just
I will.
transparency, I just did the same thing, and I was writing numbers down the list, and almost everything I have is either 1, 2. Like you could go to I don't know. I haven't seen carpets and furniture. Maybe it's a 3. I don't really know. It sounds like it's aged significantly, but I don't have anything below that. And I have mostly all 1s when I wrote it down. I got 2 on the plan and 2 on the carpets and copiers, maybe, I don't know, but I can debate some of these on the edges, but I need somebody to help me like get inside of it. But I don't see anything I'm putting at a 4 here.
I would echo the same sentiments. I think that whether you go to the community center, like back to Bill's original point, what we were able to do by having that building, we wouldn't be able to do and have the acreage of land and everything else. So to me, that's a no-brainer. As far as thinking about the equipment, everything that said, we all benefit from the productivity from the equipment in the town. The schools definitely do. That's critical for us. And then as far as the carpet and those kinds of things, it was 2000. We're 2025. So you're talking, we've gotten more than the life out of that. So can we get another year? Sure. But I don't think that that's going to be, breaking the bank there on a little bit of carpet, but it would make a significant difference because it's really high traffic areas. That's everyone coming in and out of those particular areas.
So, I listened to everything, and yeah, I would rank everything as a 1 or a 2 as well, and think it all should get funded. I just think from a perception standpoint, it'd be important to have on record to see that you consciously did rank these things. They weren't all 1s, and maybe some folks would, how they fell out from a 1, 2, 3, or 4.
One other thing that I would like to add that I think is really important, and goes both to the town side and the schools, being really thoughtful and conservative with the technology asks that are there. There's so much that needs to be done. Yes, we've played it out in a 5-year plan, but whether it's the town, the cybersecurity, all of those things, and it gets to public safety, everything. There's so much more we could do that are not being asked for when it comes in the area of technology.
All right, so what's we're supposed to take a break, I guess, but I don't know. Does anybody need a break?
Well, I think for the record, if and Marlo's not wrong in what he's saying, but I think for the record, we could very simply just give you anything we wouldn't rank as a 1 and make note of it so that it would be in the notes that in our process, like I said, I have 4 items that I wouldn't rank as a 1, and they'd all be ranked as 2s. And if we just put that into the notes, we would say that there was we'd be able to say that everybody, had that kind of a feeling that we weren't ranking everything as a 1. However, based on the funding, and that nothing was really considered not needed, then, I would rank it 1, 2, 3, and 4 as a not needed, if you will. So, if everybody did that quickly and just handed, just spoke it over the thing here, we can make that list in 2 seconds. And then it would be part of the record.
Part of this too is we're all live on YouTube and Foxboro Cable Access. This used to be done in town hall on a Saturday morning with no audience. And having the conversation open like this is free for everybody to go find down the road. Surely it'll be captured in the minutes that we had the conversation. I kind of fall in line. I think, Bill, you've kind of made your comments about what you would put as a 2. The carpet and furniture at the Ahern probably is, in my mind would be a 2 as well. And again, I think everything should be funded this year if we have the money and move forward. So if we want to just, round out, and whoever hasn't said, a 1 or a 2, we can finish that conversation.
Well, why don't we just go person by person? So I'll do mine. I would rank, the only things I wouldn't rank as a 1 is the strategic plan. I'd rank as a 2. The carpet and the furniture, both of those I'd rank as a 2, and the music I would rank as a 2, and only because we've put money into the music program, although I know this needs to be done. So those would be my 4 2s. I would have nothing else as a 3 or a 4.
And I will go next and say I echo that when I look at my numbers, the exact same numbers. And to Bill's point on the music lab refresh, because we have done some work that's there. So mine would end up falling right in that same line.
Mine would actually as well, only because not knowing the school side of things as well, I'm going to defer to the 2 folks that do know what makes sense on the school side. So I would give those as a 2 as well. Strategic plan, obviously I have a lot, writing on that. I mean, I'd like to do it, but obviously, like to Bill's point, if the sky was falling and we couldn't do it, we couldn't do it. But I do think it's a prudent move to move forward. But I could give that a 2 just because, if all else, there are obviously higher needs than that, but I do think it's a high priority for the community. Chris, what do you?
Yeah, I mean, again, looking at, what's kind of public safety, would probably rank carpet and furniture as a 2. I would keep the strategic plan as a 1. I as much as I think we could drop it off, I think it is kind of critical path to what the town does moving forward, especially with Paige in year 2 as town manager, to really get a feel for what the community is looking for. We have some, citizens petitions that are kind of driving their own course, and, hopefully we can resolve some of those between the master plan and strategic plan, to tie those into what the town actually wants to do moving forward.
So Chris, none of your equipment requests would fall to a 2? You had to leave one off the list?
I mean, the only thing we could potentially do is that front end loader. We could potentially squeeze an extra year out of it, but all you do there is you push the cost down the road. The lawnmower is 30 years old. The wood chipper's 1997. That's out of service. We don't have that in use. The hot box, if you see what the roads are doing this time of year, that piece of equipment's 20 years old and the roads are falling apart. The dump truck, like I said, that's.
But twos don't mean it's not going to get funded. I mean, clearly everything's going to get funded.
Like I said, that front end loader would be the one thing that I could probably talk the mechanic into stretching out for another year.
But you're not going to get it for a couple of years anyway.
Yeah, it's 12 to 18 months before it shows up. So,
and it could go up another 25% by next year. I mean, let's be real. Mike, did you have?
The only things I wrote 2 next to, I think it's repetitive, but lab refresh, furniture refresh, copiers, carpet, and strat plan. Everything else was a one.
Okay. All right, so is there anything else? Do we want to go to a vote?
So Marie, just to confirm the dollar amount. Because I heard you say one number and then we ended up at it, I think at a different number. So I have 3.315865 on the general fund side, and then there's obviously the other side of revolving and enterprise funding,
You mean free cash side?
free cash.
But what'd you say, 315,865? That's a digit short.
Let Marie. I just want to confirm.
Yeah, let
you
me
have
share my
some-
screen. Let's see. Just to make sure I have, can you see the ranking sheet?
Yep.
Can you make it any bigger, or how do we make you bigger?
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
So, the adjustments that I've made, so is to fund the cruiser 50% free cash, 50% out of the revolving.
Yeah.
We removed one of the ambulance fund, the leases, so just leaving the 207, 137 there. The Taylor School, I removed that out of here. But were we keeping that or removing it?
No, we'd push it to the fall at the earliest.
Okay, so I'll make note of that. And then let me see here. I removed the dam so that it's not even on here anymore. So bottom line, that gives us
And
5,000,000.
Did you reduce the library? I'm sorry, did I miss that?
Oh yes, I did. Yeah, right at
Okay.
50,000.
Okay.
So that brings us down to 5,852,488. And down here, I've got the funding. So 3,315,865 would be coming from free cash. I think that's what the number you said, Chris.
Yep.
So Marie, you said that if this is all funded and if this numbers came in as is, there'd be $31,000 less. But that number would go up if some of the bids for the COA come in, which we're going to know in the next 2-3 weeks. If they came in less than that, 31,000 would increase.
Yes.
Potential.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so Marie, what we're looking at is a total of $5,852,488, and of that $3,315,865 come from free cash, right?
Yes.
But that's not really, the vote is actually the full amount, right? The 5.8.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
approving. Yeah, so it'd be so this community center would be for now. So I would say the FY25/FY26 capital plan of 5,852,488.
And do we have to include what the breakdown is of funding?
No, you just approve the plan. Our article in the town meeting warrant will have the breakdown
Okay.
of the funding, because that could still change.
And your free cash, Maria, at the end of this, if you use 3,315, what would be your comfort level? How much do you have that you, like, if you were to restrict us from anything, well, how much more money would it have been? If I came to you with another 500,000 and spend, how much of it could I use?
Well, all you really have is the 31,000.
31,000. That's
Yeah.
what I was asking. Great, thank you.
Yeah, Marie, can I ask a question on just procedure? So if
Sure.
it gets moved to the fall town meeting, do we have another meeting in the future to have it approved again, or is it approved here to be at the fall town meeting?
Yeah, there will be another meeting. That's how we did although you weren't here last year, but that's how we did the trackless trailer, which was previously deferred to the fall.
So we have to come back and get it approved for the fall town meeting if it got bumped to the fall, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, do I have a motion to approve the FY25-26 capital plan for a total of $5,852,488?
So moved.
I'll
Do I have a
second.
For a second? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, we have to do a roll call, so I'll go in order of my screen. Mike?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Paige? Yes. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Thank you all for spending Saturday morning with us. And thank you, Marlo, for coming and being part of it. And actually, I think really improving the transparency of this. So I appreciate your input.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. All right. Have a great Saturday, everyone.
You
Motion
too.
to adjourn. Sorry. Motion to adjourn.
You need to do roll call because we're on Zoom for joint,
Adjournment.
Technically, yes, but what are they going to do? But yes. So Mike, motion to adjourn. Or do I have a
Oh,
motion? to
so
adjourn?
moved.
Second.
Okay. And
Aye.
Mike,
Yeah.
Chris,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Amy,
yes.
Paige. Yes. Have a great day, everyone.
Enjoy the rest, bye, guys.